by asking folks to choose the language that they will be listening in on. There should be an option, so please ensure that the language is chosen so that you are able to understand and listen into the good words that we have from these esteemed knowledge keepers that we've brought together today. And a reminder for those who are wishing to listen to the event in French, that we have a link so that you can join the webinar to hear French interpretation. We are so pleased to have this group together tonight. And I'm going to ask my co-host Janet to provide some opening remarks before we ask for our opening.
Yeah, so I just want to say how nice it is to see people join us, and hello to people that are saying hi in the chat. And then before I say much else, I just wanted to offer this virtual tobacco tie to Elder Dominique Rankin and ask if he'll start us off in a good way with an opening prayer.
Thank you very much for tobacco. I learned a little bit English. An evening, I'm lost. je parle français et merci.
So I speak French. So thank you for the Native Friendship to the Native Friendship Centers of Canada. I've been a senator for many years, and I know the role of each friendship center. And they all have a mandate for their populations and especially for the future generations. And my prayer is for everyone. It touches everybody. Today, we are living or experiencing a huge sweat lodge. We are all inside this big sweat lodge, and we need support. We need love, and we need to talk amongst ourselves. And what a wonderful initiative that you have taken this evening. Sometimes I say miigwech to COVID-19. That allowed us to see each other through technology. That's another spirit that I don't know. But I'm getting used to it. And I love seeing people in person too. And even though you're so far away, we can feel very close together. And I showed the eagle feather. I always have the eagle feather with me. The first thing, when I give my teachings, we'll talk. When we pray, it is important to consider the eagle feather. An eagle is a spirit. The eagle is a messenger who comes to see us. And when the eagle is present, it's because the eagle comes to bring us a vision. Whether you're in your car, you're in a canoe, or in your train, if you see an eagle, it will be bringing this circle. It could be the circle of love, or the circle of life, or the circle of healing. And you see my eagle feather in my hand. There is a stem in the middle. And this stem represents one life. And each side of the feather also represents all the people of the world. This side here, these ones are rounder than the other. These ones are longer than the other side, and these are us. And on the other side, this is the future generation. That's the vision of the friendship centers, sharing, giving, knowledge, the knowledge that we received from our elders who have left us. We are all here together. Even though sometimes there's some weakness, sometimes COVID catches up to us each day, but we have to live alongside this powerful teaching. That's how I call it. It's part of the teachings. And I wish to salute my little sister, Maria Campbell. I'm very sad for you. And that's part of the teachings. When somebody leaves us, when we lose somebody. And I'm here beside you. And I'll use my language because that's something that I really love to use, my language, my mother's and father's language. My mother was Cree and my father was an Algonquin. And I had the chance to live the traditional life. I was born in the forest. And I have a lot of things to say tonight. But first of all, I'll ask the Great Spirit, the Creator, for all the friendship centers. Please, the Great Spirit, protect the friendship centers and protect all the people coming towards us at the friendship centers who need to be accompanied, whether it's to go through the strong emotions they live, whether they're positive or negative emotions. They are our brothers and sisters. And sometimes they come to see us, to help us as well. And I believe in the friendship centers because I was once a director of a friendship center as well.
Jabashkoiziwin, Ishinagun, Akuziwin, Kaudisabuk. Ishinaguzian, Ishinabe. Kunadoendan Giabat Sagituin. Kijisagi tot utaki. Uzibim. Sagaigan. Umitteguman. Utawesisman. Mieje bagut senda kanishinabe. Miejnagok nugum. Kijimina kunikaushkim matisiach. Kakina. Weshkat anishinabe. Kamina work. Kikinoma diwin. Miigwech imaetaik. Miigwech kadebinjigich. Thank you very, very much.
Hi.
Miigwech, Dominic, for your opening prayer. We appreciate getting started in a good way with those good words. So for those who may not know, my name is Jocelyn Formsma. I'm the Executive Director of the National Association of Friendship Centers. And this is the fourth event that we've done in partnership with Well Living House and my co-host, Dr. Janet Smiley, who will also introduce herself shortly. We have had quite the journey since the the pandemic has started, and we've worked hard over these last 10 months or so, working together to make sure that we've provided an accessible way for folks to learn a little bit more about COVID and share some ideas on how we can work together to get through this. And we felt it was really important that we hear about some of our ways and how we have dealt with both in the past and some ways that we can deal with what we're going through together right now, using some of that knowledge and some of the ways that we've always had. So I'm really excited that we have brought Elder Albert Dumont, Dominique Rankin, and Maria Campbell here to join us to share some of those good words. So miigwech for being with us, and miigwech to our elders for agreeing to share some of their insights and knowledge with us tonight.
Tansy, good evening, everyone. It's really nice to be here, co-facilitating again with Jocelyn. Yeah, I feel very humbled, excited, and happy to be in such good company. I think all three of our elders probably don't need too much introduction, but yeah, Elder Maria Campbell, Maria, I have this gift of virtual tobacco, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to share some of your amazing stories and whatever comes tonight. Maria sent a very humble bio saying that she's a community worker who works with youth and recently with grandmothers raising grandchildren. I'm always inspired when I call her. Some of you who know me know I talk a lot and have to learn to listen, but if I listen carefully and give her a chance, I'll find out all the amazing things that she's been up to. So one of those is recently supporting grandmothers raising their grandchildren. And she's a founding member of Grandmothers for Justice, and she's also a writer and playwright. So many of us read her when we were very young. And reading Half-Breed for me, and I think for many others, really helped us find ourselves. To pay for groceries and her rent, she works as a cultural advisor at the College of Law and Indigenous Law Center, University of Alberta, and at the Naskowdawin Center at the Basque University. So welcome, Maria. It's really an honor to have you here with us tonight. And then Elder Albert Dumont, again, I have some tobacco, and I know you always have tobacco in hand as well, but I'll carry it. You're teaching me about how to hold it in hand. I'm really lucky that I get to work with Albert in my work at the Well Living House, but Albert's been working for many, many decades to shore up the spiritual strength of peoples. But it says in his very humble bio that since October 2016, Albert Dumont, known to all our relations as Oshki Nodin Newwind, has been serving his community as one of 13 elders on the Elder Advisory Committee of the Ministry of Attorney General. He's an activist, a volunteer, and a poet who has published 5 books of poetry and short stories. In recognition for his work as an activist and volunteer on his ancestral lands, Ottawa and region, Albert was presented with a Human Rights Award by the Public Service Alliance of Canada in 2010, and in January 2017, he received the Dreamkeeper citation for outstanding leadership. And he's dedicated his life to promoting Aboriginal spirituality and healing, and to protecting the rights of Aboriginal peoples, particularly those as they affect the young. So again, Albert, I'm feeling very lucky to have you here. And I was gonna turn it over to Jocelyn to introduce Elder Dominique, who we've already heard from.
Thank you, Janet. As Elder Dominique mentioned, he is a Senate member of the National Association of Friendship Centers, which is reserved for our most respected volunteers and staff and folks who were the trailblazers of the Friendship Center movement. And Dominique is Algonquin and born in the forest of northern Abitibi, formerly Grand Chief of the Algonquin Nation. And he will say that he has now healed from politics, and along with grandmother Marie José in 2013 created Kinate, together a nonprofit organization whose mission is to allow healing and cultural reconnection for First Nations and to promote reconciliation and the sharing of Indigenous cultures with all nations. And so, yes, this is our panel tonight, and thank you again for being here.
Great. So I think we're going to get started just hearing from our elders, because they have had a little bit of time to think about things. I do want to make sure before I forget to also acknowledge all the amazing people we have behind the scenes, and including our translators and some of my team at Well Living House, Andrea and Sam, and then as well as Sarah at NAFC. But yeah, just to get things started, I'm wondering, the topic is staying well with traditional practices during COVID-19. So I'm wondering if we could ask the elders on the panel to share anything that they would like to with our audience around how we can use traditional practices to stay well during COVID. I'm wondering if one of the elders wants to start the conversation. We're supposed to be like we're at a kitchen table, so.
Well, I'll start.
Thanks, Auntie.
One of the things that's really important for me is sweat lodge, and I really miss it because I'm in the city in the winter, and you know, normally you can go to somebody's sweat anywhere outside the city, but you know, because of COVID, that's not happening, and so it's not like I need to go into the sweat all the time, but because I'm you know, we have a lot of when we're just, you know, kind of locked up in the house, it gets, you know, some days are really bummers, because I would like to go out and visit my grandchildren or have them come over for dinner. Anyway, and so I need something to make me feel better. And I can't go into the sweat lodge, which is what I've done for many years to help me. But when we were little kids, my great grandmother used to have because we didn't have sweat lodge in the community, and we didn't, you know, like I really never knew what a sweat lodge was because we didn't speak English at home, and that's not what they were called in our language. They're called matutsan. And so, but we never had that. Sometimes the men would use them before they'd go out hunting, but they were out in the bush and we didn't really see them. But what my grandma used to do is she'd take a big frying pan, a cast iron frying pan, the really big ones that she'd make bannock with outside on the fire, or fry fish or whatever. She'd put a big stone about this big in the middle of it, and it would sit in the oven. That stone would sit in the oven because we had wood stoves. The stone was always really hot. And if we were sick, especially, that was when most of us in our family remember that when we were sick, my grandmother would put this stone in the frying pan, and she'd take it under the table and then throw blankets on top of the table. And then we would crawl under there, and she would use skunk medicine. I don't know what to call it in English. She'd have it ground up, or else it would be just the oil by itself. And she'd drop it, a drop of that on the stone. And then we had to inhale that. And then she'd put a little bit of water in the thing. So it was like having a little sweat lodge in the thing, because you'd get all the steam. And we used to do that, and we just dreaded it because there's nothing worse or stronger than skunk medicine. And but she always doctored us, and we'd come out of there laughing because it was, I don't know, it was something about kids. You'd laugh because you're in there with the skunk. But so I was thinking about that one day. I wanted to go to a sweat so bad, and I couldn't. And I remembered this with my grandmother, and I have some lava rocks outside that I brought in last summer so that we could do a sweat, and I was going to take it to the sweat lodge. And I unloaded it from my truck and had it, all piled up by the house. So I went out and I dug around for the lava rock and found one about this big, because I don't have a huge frying pan. My cast iron frying pan is a bit smaller. So I put the stone in the oven, the lava rock, and it got real hot. And I threw blankets on top of the table, and it really worked good. The stone was real hot, and I took some water, and I didn't have skunk medicine, but I was able to use the medicine that we use in our lodge. And just one big stone, and I had a really nice little sweat all by myself. So that's one way to, to try and have your ceremony, and it worked. And I felt really good when I came out, because I started to remember, how all of us would just be trying to hide when my grandmother would take this out. So for me, that's really important. And a lava rock you can use over and over again. So I've got it sitting in my oven, and if I feel like I want to sweat again, then I'll do that. And I have one lady that's in my bubble, and she's from our lodge. And I called her the other day, and I said, if you want to come and sweat, we can have a sweat in the afternoon. And so we're going to do that one of these days pretty soon. So that's what I'm doing. If I can't go out to a sweat lodge, I'll have one under the kitchen table with a big frying pan. I just hope my table doesn't come unglued and fall on top of me. Awful. I was thinking that, we always find ways, you could find a way to be able to. And what that did is it made me think of a whole lot of stories and things that I've been thinking about. And so I'm going to start phoning my brothers, who have memories of that as well, and see if they remember some of the stuff I've jotted notes down from stuff that I remembered when I came out of that little sweat. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. And it was very uncomfortable at first to have make offerings on Zoom with tobacco, and I didn't know how I was going to do that. So that was last spring. It was trying to find ways to do that. So I usually, when we're finished, I go out and I put the tobacco out under my tree in the back, and yeah. So that's. I don't have to be without my sweat. I can still have it. So there you are, Albert. You can do that too.
Yeah, I will do. I will. Thank you so much.
Take little kids.
Yeah.
Albert, did you want to share anything? And then we'll go to Dominique.
Okay. Thank you, Maria, for that, because I remember my dad saying how skunk medicine healed his throat one time, and he didn't know what to make of it whenever he was courting my mom at the time, and her parents gave it to him. That ways it worked. It's great medicine. Mm-hmm. I think I'd like to share about how I begin my day every day, and that's with a ritual that I do. I acknowledge water, and the first thing I talk about to water is I acknowledge the water that's in my hair, what's left of it. I acknowledge water that's in my skin, the water that's in my blood and in my tendons and fibers and everything like that. The water that's in my bones, the water that's in my mind, my brain, water that's in my eyes that allows me to see, the water that's in my nose that I can smell, the water that's in my mouth that gives me my voice and allows me to taste, the water that allows me to hear, and acknowledge that the water of my lungs and in my heart, all my organs, my muscles, the water that allows me to feel caress or to give caress, but the water of my spirit helpers and my totems, like the water in the partridge, the water in the turtle, the water in the Mick the beaver, the water that's in waboos, and the water that's in the robin. And I acknowledge the water in the pine trees and the white birch trees, because I'm very connected to those things. If something is alive, it has water. And you know, whenever it's dead, it doesn't have water anymore. So I acknowledge water. And then whenever I think about my spirit helpers, like the turtle and the rabbit and beaver and those things, I imagine them and that they come into my hands, and with them in my hands, I say to them to push that virus away from Kitigan-Zibi, to push that virus away from Algonquin territory. And I actually make that motion, you know, like pushing with the, and because I really believe it, that they're there, you know, to help push that away. You know, whenever we think about our languages, and we think about the what Creator gave to us, that we could communicate from the physical to the spiritual. Creator gave us a drum. Everybody has a drum. All the people of the world have a drum. You know, it's not just us that had a drum. The white people too, the black people, everybody had a drum. Creator gave us rattles. Creator gave us the ability to chant a prayer, you know, from the physical to the spiritual. Creator gave us the ability to create a dance for the purpose of prayer. So with that in mind, there's a forest behind my house, and there's an old bush road on it. And whenever I get to the entrance of that bush road, I put tobacco down, and every step I take is a prayer. You know, if I've got anxiety, if I've got, if I'm worries about this COVID and who's going to be stricken by it. And I don't want anybody that I love, I don't want anybody to get it actually, but especially the people that I love, I don't want them to get sick. You know, it's bad enough that we have to experience loss of life among our friends and relatives, but to have that happen whenever we were in a time of COVID, and we can't go and do that feasting and mourning as we did before that COVID came, you know. So for me, anyways, every step I take in the forest, every step, because to me it's like a motion, and therefore it becomes a prayer. And as I walk, I acknowledge everything. My mind is just fixed on the prayer, and I'm talking to the trees, I'm talking to the grass, and now I'm going to be talking to the snow that I see on the branches, and maybe where a partridge spent the night in a snowdrift or whatever, and I talk to the wind, and because the whole walk, I walk in about 1.5 kilometers, and then I walk back out again, and those 3 kilometers is a constant prayer. And that's what I do well, not every day that I go for the walk, but every day that I start my day with acknowledging water and how much we should take care of it, because if water's not there, you know, it's not going to mean a future for our people or anybody else. So that's what I do every day, and it serves me well, and I think it's a good way to start the day. after I do that ritual, and then I'm going to have my coffee. And as I'm going by to get to the stove to make my coffee, and I turn the radio on, and I hear about maybe Trump doing some stuff, and I'm just glad that I have the able to do that prayer, because this world needs prayer, because there's too many people like Trump in it. But
Thank you, Alfred. Wow, how rich we are. So maybe we'll hear from Elder Dominique, anything that he would like to share, and then I know there's some questions coming in, but why don't we just hear what Dominique wants to share first, and then we'll go to the questions. How's that sound, Jocelyn? Okay.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Maria, and thank you, Albert. I am a spoiled man in life from what I learned from elders. This transfer of knowledge that I gained, I live with that today. I was able to come out of this story where they took the children away, the residential schools. I managed to get away from that story. But I lived for a long time as a victim. Today, I have all the elements. It's not easy today to stay an Anishinaabe, a human being. There are many things that take away ancient history from us. And I have here, this is something that I regularly use. Grandmother Maria talked about a sweat lodge and stones. I have done a lot of sweat lodges. We call these madado. It's the meeting of the spirits. And this stone, I was born close to the Harricana River in James Bay, starting from Abitibi right up to James Bay. And I remember having traveled with my parents, my grandparents. At that time, there was absolutely nothing there. It was nature that was there. And today, there are many forest companies and a lot of mines as well that have been developed. These are all things that prevent us sometimes from moving forward because we're in very strong emotions. We're aggressive. Oftentimes, I felt very aggressive when I saw these developments because we came out of our territory. We were taken away. So I live a lot in history. But what I have here is a nice story, is a good story. It's called, it's not Harricana, the real name. It's Anacona CB. It means it's the river of cookies. So we see women make cakes and characters here. So this was sculpted by nature. This is what holds me up. This is what I like in life, to always have an object that reminds us of our history. This is why I am still standing today. Technology, I know nothing about technology. Absolutely nothing about technology. Now, I know life in the forest. When I go into the forest, it's to see my ancestors. The elders have always told me, don't be surprised either by a lake or a river or on a mountain where there are good spirits, animal spirits. So today, it's not easy to find places like that. And this is a bit what the women lost as well. They lost the opportunity to go pray by lakes and rivers. Today they can't do that anymore. There are so many hunters, it's so dangerous. It's like you're crossing a street in a big city. It's a bit the same thing in the forest now. There are so many people in the forest. But we are all there. My sisters are buried in the forest. Cemeteries didn't exist. And sometimes I go into the forest and I take my canoe just to go and salute these people that have left us and left many things behind for us. So for me, communication between us is very important. Whether as a nation, we were divided by the government, but we are all Anishinaabe, which means a human being of the earth. We are the guardians. The women are the guardians of the earth, and we are also guardians. We hold the woman's hand. So for me, it's important. In the morning when I get up, I drink water in the 4 directions. Who do I drink for? I drink for me before giving anything to anyone else. We must always start by ourselves. I drink water. My first drink is that I engage in being Anishinaabe today. The second time I drink, I engage in respecting myself, and accepting. The third time I drink is to accept the history I have behind me, the story behind me. And that story, it was so heart-wrenching. They almost killed the little Indian that you see today, but it didn't work. Miigwech to my ancestors. I never left the ancestors. Miigwech to those people who really gave us this love, because we were torn. Toward the West, I always ask the Creator to help me accept what happened in the past and not live in the dark, but to look forward for the future generations. For me, it is important to always look to the future for the future generations. The fourth time I drink, I thank everything. I thank my mother, who carried me for 9 months. This is how I learned about sacred water. When the waters broke, I arrived after that. This is how I share with people. We are all sacred children because we all arrived by the same river. And for me, it is important to share about that. I would so much like to see the children today, to see them live in their culture with both feet, in their philosophy, in their beliefs. I have nothing against religions, whatever religion. We call this mashchiki in Anishinaabe, the human medicine. And for me, it's important. The prayers to the Creator. The Creator is there and understands all languages and all prayers. I never translate what I say, it's my language. And thank you to my mother, my father too, because these are the 2 languages that I learned when I came to this world, Algonquin and Cree. So these 2 languages, the third one is French and the fourth is English. And for me, it's important to really, like my father said, give you to yourself and feed yourself so that you can give back to others, and you'll be able to give a lot of love to others. And this is where I was successful when I started to love myself. I didn't know what love was. that was taken away from me. But when I saw myself in that sweat lodge, even if it's dark in the sweat lodge, you're there. You see yourself. You feel who you are. So I have sweat a lot in my life for healing, and I sweat a lot for fear. I was scared when I went to school. It was always fear, and I used to sweat so much from fear. But now I sweat in the sweat lodge in the Madado because it's my healing. When I cry, I say miigwech to my mother again, for that is healing too. And it's the way of speaking, to express oneself. And at any time, sometimes I cry, sometimes I sing. Miigwech, Dewagan, saved my life. That's my drum. My drum saved my life. I am also a pipe bearer, and I do presentations, and I like to share with others. Today, COVID-19 is preventing us from doing that, but I'm still continuing to walk beside an animal that I want to walk with, whether a bear, bison, whatever. I am no longer alone. I am a child of the forest. And I went back to the forest for my healing and everything the Creator gives me. Thank you for having listened to me.
Miigwech, for everyone for sharing those stories and those really practical tips that we can think about how to incorporate within our own homes and how we can adapt to our circumstances using the same ideas and of what we've been taught. And I'm wondering, so when we started the pandemic, it was springtime, or almost almost springtime, and we went through the summer months, and the sun was out and it was bright and we could go outside, and then we've gone through fall, and now we're getting close to winter, and the months are very dark, and it's harder to be outside because it's colder, and so people are feeling it, feeling I guess the darkness. They're tired from the virus, and I'm wondering if anyone would like to share maybe some lessons or storytelling traditions, or anything from our different cultures about what we can learn from those winter months, and how we can keep our spirits and moods bright, even though the days are short and it's dark outside. I don't know, maybe Albert, if you have thoughts you want to share on that to start us off, and maybe give us some of those ideas.
Mhm. Yes, I'd like to share that again, one of my granddaughters, when I guess she was 9 years old, just about a year ago, and I said to her, "What does common sense mean to you?" And she thought about it for a minute, and then she says, "I know nothing of it." And I said to her, I says, "You're 9 years old, but you're ahead of your time because you're talking just like a teenager." It's common sense, sometimes we look at our young people and we wonder how much common sense they have, but they're very wise. Our children are wise. Our young people know when their rights are being infringed upon, and they react. So for me, anyways, as a grandfather, I try to impress about what it is to be sensible to my daughters and to my grandchildren. And whenever in the winter time, you need to be extra sensible because the ice is slippery, and if you're not going to be careful, you might fall, break a leg or something, an arm, a hip, whatever, and that's not good. One of one of the teaching that I received one day was I was talking to a lady who was going through a hard time emotionally. She was in bad shape with depression, and it was in the wintertime, and we happened to be in an area of the Ottawa River, and you could look down river and you could look up river, and it was solid ice. And I said to her, I said, you know, in the lakes of Algonquin territory right now, there's a big ceiling of ice and snow and crust over the world where the fish live. Imagine how dark it is where the fish live. And I don't know if that darkness is a depressing time for the fish. I don't know. But I do know that the fish are quite aware that there's going to come a change of season, and the weather is going to get warmer, and that big ceiling that's brought darkness into their world is going to disappear, and there's going to be brightness again where the fish live. But they have faith that that time is going to come. They know it's going to come. They know that their time of darkness will pass. So that's what I said to that lady. That just popped into my mind to say that day. And I said, the darkness you're feeling now, that you're experiencing now, and the emotional, the stress that you're in, it's going to pass. Have faith, you know. And the something I'd just like to add to that is especially in the wintertime, you notice it more, but the branches of the white pine tree are longer in the easterly direction than they are in any other direction. That's what an old man told me who worked with trees all his life, and he was well into his 80s. And I said to him, I said, why is that? And he said, I don't know why, but it's just a fact. So whenever I thought about it, I said to myself, well, the pine tree his branches are longer in the east because the pine tree is pointing to the east and telling any human being who's going through a time of sadness or depression or anxiety or whatever that's not good. The tree is saying tomorrow is a new dawn. Tomorrow is a new day, a new chance for healing. And it's pointing to the east, so that we appreciate that tomorrow is going to be a new opportunity to heal. That's what will come with the new day. I think a lot about, I started snowshoeing a few years ago, and I love it. You know, I'm asking myself, how come I never did snowshoeing before? Because I'm discovering so much more about winter. And, you know, that I'm making a lot of tea now with balsam fir and with cedar. And I put in Labrador, because Labrador is there all the time, you know. And there's a bog behind my house, and there's the Labrador leaves are sticking out of the snow in the bog, and I pick the Labrador leaves, and the wintergreen is there too, you know. And so I mix that. Sometimes I put shagga in with it, but to me, I believe in it as a medicine, and it's I believe it's going to help my immune system if that COVID does come around my house. I'm going to be okay. And by the way, I pick a lot of berries in the summertime, and I freeze them, and I eat berries, wild berries, lots over the course of a week. Blackberries, raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, all the berries. I got lots of them.
Thank you, Elder Albert, for sharing those teachings around the winter season. I just want to say, and I don't know if all the elders can see the chat, but there's overwhelming gratitude and kind words and words of thanks for the stories you're sharing. So I wonder, along that theme, Auntie Maria, is there anything that you wanted to share again on this theme of, now that we're in this, approaching this winter season of COVID, any medicines, storytelling traditions, things that you would want to share that might help people getting through the dark days of winter? Auntie, you're still on mute. So you just got to click on that mute button.
Forgetting about that. Yeah, I have some things. I'm not always able to go out and pick medicine anymore because, everybody is, this year especially, there hasn't been many people around to go out and pick with me. And I don't like going out by myself anymore. But I have a garden, a wild medicine garden at the law college at our university. And so all of the plants that I usually pick in the summer that I use, I have growing there. And one of my favorites is wild mint. And I have lots of that. And in fact, this is my second year with my wild garden. And it sounds crazy to have a wild garden in the city, and especially a university, but this piece of land was sitting there with nothing happening on it. And so a group of us, students and faculty, put the garden in. We went out and dug wild plants up, and they grew. They grew, and not only did they grow, they bought all of their wakomaganag, and all their relatives moved into. So we have all of these plants that we thought we'd have to go out and dig. But I guess the for me, the mint has always been because that's a medicine that Métis people especially always liked. Everything that we would drink in the summer, nobody could afford tea all the time, so you really used the tea sparingly, and you'd put a little bit of tea in the pot and put a whole bunch of either the Labrador tea or the wild mint mixed in with that. And it's medicinal. You can use it in the sweat. You put lots of the wild mint in the water and pour it over the stones, and it's really good for congestion, just like yarrow and all of those. So I have all the medicines now growing in the garden, which is about 2 blocks from me. So, that's what I use. But for me, the winter and dealing with COVID is about stories. And I've always loved winter. I love all the seasons, and I love winter, but I wish that it was a little bit shorter. As I get older, I wished it was a little bit shorter. But the thing for me about winter that's really special is I grew up, our dad was a trapper. And so were the people in our communities, everybody trapped in the winter. And there's just an excitement when everybody would leave to go out in a trap line. And for myself and my siblings, it was our job to make sure that we had enough fresh meat in the house, because all we had was moose meat most of the time. But you get tired of eating that. And so it was the job of my 2 older brothers and myself to go out and set rabbit snares and make sure that we bought fresh rabbits home. And we had our own little trap lines. We would get weasels and all those kinds of things. So there's lots of stories about outdoors for us, and our grandmother would tell us lots of stories in the winter, because for us storytelling was the winter time. And so I guess the hard thing for me with COVID is that I can't share those stories with my grandchildren this winter, or even be able to go out and do those things with them. But I look out the window and I'm in the city, because my home, as you know, is about 40 minutes outside of the city. But I lock it up in the winter and come into the city. But there's more rabbits in the city than there is in the, out on the land. I look out my window and there's like 5 or 6 of them running through the yard all the time. I have a garden out in front, and I got up this summer to thinking that I was going to go out and get all of the new vegetables that were coming in. And there were 2 rabbits sitting right in the middle of my garden eating up. They ate up all my kale and spinach. Everything was gone. So somebody mentioned today, there's so many rabbits in town. It was my daughter. She was bringing me home from the dentist. And I said, yeah, because pickings are better in the city. You know, you got fresh gardens, you got all these beautiful shrubs and plants that you can eat that you don't have out at the crossing. But winter is about stories. I think about, you know, I've always loved storytelling. And then winter is when I really think about my grandmothers, because they were the storytellers in the winter. You know, I remember sitting with them because we couldn't go out very much other than to do our work, and then we'd come in. And I never realized until we were older, and I was telling my daughter this the other day because she's got 3 little girls, and they're visiting her over the summer, over the holidays. And they're at the age where they're competing with each other, and there's lots of arguing going on. So I told her, I said, tell them stories, because that's what our grandma used to do. And it find stuff for them to do, you know, teach them how to do something, and then tell stories while you're doing it, and then get them to tell stories. And it's stories are really healing. People always say nobody wants to remember things, because people have lots of, you know, as Indigenous people, we have lots of bad memories. There's been so much trauma in anybody's life for all of us, whether we were in residential schools or we were scooped up, or, you know, just after leaving home, the struggles we had before we were able to pull our lives together. So there's lots of bad memories, but there's also lots of really good memories, really precious ones. And even sitting down with an album and a collection of photographs, I think about, you know, I pulled this photograph out. I don't know, can you see it? This is one of my great grandmothers, and she was a midwife. And that was one of the little settler babies that she delivered in the community. This little girl's dad was a doctor in the community, but he didn't deliver the babies. My great grandmother did. And so I, for the first time, told my children, my daughters about her. I mean, they all knew about her, but they didn't know that she used skunk medicine, or that she delivered babies, and that probably delivered all of the babies for many, many miles around. Mm-hmm. And you can do that because that's medicine. Just get an album with old pictures, or just a collection of old pictures, and you can spend a whole evening. Make some sugared mint tea and black tea mixed together, and sit with all of your little kids and tell them the stories about who their ancestors are. And our grandma used to do that for us during the day when we were all in the house, and it kept us quiet. Or else she'd help us make things. She'd show us how to, lace snowshoes, or show us how to darn socks, doing all kinds of things, and tell us just little stories about uncles or aunties or people who did special things, or about hunting and trapping. And that calmed us down, because we didn't have big houses like we do today. I grew up in a big 2-room house. You know, 1 room was for sleeping, and 1 room was for our living. And you couldn't get away from each other. So the stories kept us together. You know, we often think that we have to do all of these big, huge ceremonial things, but we never think that telling a story about your great-grandmother or your great-grandfather is a ceremony too. Or, showing somebody how to lace snowshoes, or to darn a sock. Those are things nobody ever does anymore. So these little kids can then talk about olden days stuff, because that's how they see that. And there's a real strong sense of purpose. When I sent you that little bio, I said that I started working with grandmothers, because today, and especially during COVID times, many grandparents are looking after their grandchildren, and especially grandmothers, because there are many single women who raise their children alone, and so their grandmother's living by themselves. And they're tired looking after all these children. But this is the one thing that they're able to do is tell their children stories. It's a way, because they can't go out. You can only play outside for so long. And right now, like our temperatures here have been hitting minus 27 and 30 in Saskatchewan. So it's cold. You can't just be outside playing all the time. So baking bread together, all of those ordinary things that we should be teaching our children, because those are ceremonial things, cooking food for our families. And I know lots of people who are so busy chasing ceremony that they don't stay home and have porridge with their kids, and children need that, especially during these hard times. For me, that's medicine, and those are things that we need to share with each other. And we never visit anymore, and I never thought a whole lot about that, because as you know, at the crossing, I've got visitors coming all the time. But once I come back to the city, there's very few visitors. And for many of our people, we just don't visit like we used to. In my language, visiting is gilgewin, where you have tea with each other and tell stories, and people come and go. And today we have to phone each other to see if you got time. Do you have time for me to drop in for a cup of coffee? Or we don't just drop in on each other and share food, our meals together. And those are things I believe that, especially for us as grandmothers, if we don't keep doing those kinds of things in our home, those kinds of ceremonies in our homes, then those things are going to be lost. And Elder Dominique talked about the role of women in community. And that's one of the powerful roles for our people. I know as a Michif person, our mothers and our grandmothers were central in the homes. And I know that was true for my First Nations grandparents as well. And if we don't have that, then we really don't have home or community. You were showing that photograph of Christie's painting of the lodge, the well living house logo. That lodge that's our home. And inside of that, that's representative of the womb, and the elder talked about water, and that was our first, none of us come into the world without water. So those are all things that are feminine and are from grandmother. And if grandmothers don't, aren't doing that, then those things are going to be lost. And it doesn't matter how many land claims we get or how much we get of anything. Then they're going to be meaningless if we don't have those things that are inside of that home, inside of that lodge. And we don't visit each other anymore and share those stories about our ancestors with our children. Those I believe are important medicine. And I really believe that COVID is we all know that's part of the prophecies that my elders used to talk about, and I'm sure that everybody else's elders talked about, that we're going to be reminded of our responsibilities and our obligations to our families in order for us to make change. If we can't make change in our homes, then we can't make change outside. And I think COVID is a time where we're having to think about those kinds of things. We have to spend a lot of time by ourselves and to think about, not to think about whether I'm a good person or a bad person, a good grandparent or not, but what can I do to bring those things in that I'm missing right now? When we have everything is okay, we're so busy, and especially people like myself, we're so busy because everybody wants us to come and do stuff, that we're so busy mothering and grandmothering all over the place that we forget to do that at home as well. And I think that's true for politicians or for anybody else. In whatever work we do, we're so busy out there helping everybody else that we forget what we have to do at home. So that's my message to grandmothers, and it's one of the things that the few grandmothers that we've started to get together is to talk about, you know, what are the big ceremonies we can have? The big ceremonies we can have are to tell stories about all of the old people in our family and show pictures if we have them, or their artwork, or their beadwork, whatever, and cook food with our kids, and get up in the morning and make porridge for them and tell them we love them, to make them strong when they go out the door. And maybe that way they'll grow up and be good parents too. You know, because those are the things we didn't always get. And we need, they won't happen. We have to do them. So I think that's what COVID is telling us. For me, COVID is medicine. It's teaching us all kinds of things. Even on my darkest days, I know that it's trying to tell me something. And yeah, it's taught me not to be running around working my butt off when I should be staying home doing a whole lot of other things instead. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you, Maria. Elder Dominique, did you want to weigh in?
L'hiver,
In the winter, and then there's spring.
le meilleur moment pour
It's the best time
s'approcher les uns les autres.
to get
Et
closer
l'été,
to each other.
disperse.
And in the summer, we disperse. Everyone goes off and does what they're doing
On est tous
or whatever I have to
ensemble.
do. But now at this time, we're all together. And COVID-19 is there too.
Moi, j'ai de bons exemples,
I have
avec, ma
good
fille de
examples
21 ans.
with my 31-year-old daughter.
Beaucoup de questions.
She
Et, même sur,
asks a lot of questions,
la médecine des femmes,
even on women's medicine.
entendre ça parce que,
She needs to hear about
elle a
this.
pas eu, sa grand-maman, sa grand-mère, elle est partie très très jeune.
Her grandmother left us when she was very young.
Elle est partie, puis elle est venue au
My
monde.
mother, when my mother passed away, and my daughter was born a year after
Le rôle de la femme,
my mother's death, and she asked a question about the women's role,
l'histoire de-
and asked a question about
médecine des
the
femmes.
history. History is medicine for women. She asks a lot of questions about the full moon, and when she's in her
Vraiment savoir,
moon
parce que,
period,
écoutez,
the cycle, she wants to really know about the traditions.
dans la forêt, parce qu'il y avait
How
pas de
did women
pharmacie,
live in the forest? Because there's no pharmacy there, so it was time to really get into the history.
19 enfants, il y avait 10
My mother
filles
had,
dans leur famille.
there were 19 children,
Ça n'existait pas dans le temps.
and she had 19 sisters, and they did not have tampons back then.
Surtout moi,
So how did our ancestors do this when I was young?
vraiment entraîné d'aller chercher la,
They taught me to look for lichen
aussi le fougère.
and the ferns,
C'est nous qui fabriquait
and we made
hygiénique les enfants.
the hygienic the sanitary napkins for the women, and they showed us how to do this.
Ça, des Pampers.
And they also made things for Pampers, like we called this. This material was used for baby diapers.
Moment
So I think
enseigné,
it's the best time
comment ils vivaient ces gens-là avant nous.
to show how these people used to live before us, and miigwech to all my ancestors, because I still have this in my blood, and I would like to pass this on to my daughter.
Je viens d'avoir un petit-fils.
I just 2 years ago, I just had a grandson as well, and maybe 3 weeks ago they came to visit. It was my grandson's birthday, and we celebrated this in the forest. And he said to me, "Hey, Grandpa, I'm going to show you how to make a sacred fire."
Je parlais à un adolescent.
And it's as if I was talking to a teenager.
Il écoute les
was there, he
yeux
was listening. You could see his eyes were wide open. And he lit the fire
des écorces de bouleau,
with birch
comme
bark.
grand-papa et
That's
survécu,
that's how grandfather survived in the woods. So I also talk
animaux.
about animals a lot
J'étais trappeur.
because I used to be a trapper.
C'était ça la nourriture.
That was
que la
where we got
créateur
our
nous donnait,
food.
puis j'ai
All of
appris à dire
that's what the
miigwech
creator gave us.
quand
And I learned to say miigwech when we had nothing.
trapper, puis il
And
revenait
my father went out trapping and he came back with empty hands.
semaine qu'il était parti, puis il
Had
revenait
nothing. He's
avec
been
rien.
gone for 2 weeks and he came back with
Et j'ai
nothing.
vu maman, j'ai
And I
entendu
saw,
maman dire
I heard my mother say,
miigwech,
miigwech, just the
on fait
same.
du bannock.
We have
Ça m'a
bannock.
appris à faire du bannock aussi.
So I learned how to
Alors,
make
ma
bannock
fille,
too.
elle est excellente, mais
So
quand elle fait du bannock,
my daughter makes excellent bannock, but it's
visuel,
education. But we're all visual.
visuel.
We're all visual learners.
Je travaille avec vraiment que le monde voit. Quand je prends
We
mon
really have to see things. When I take my canoe,
quand je veux enseigner quelqu'un,
when I want to teach
je
somebody,
montre comment
I show
respecter
them
le canot.
how to respect the
Il
canoe.
faut se respecter. Si tu
But we have to
respectes pas le
respect
canot,
ourselves.
le
If you
canot
don't
peut
respect
percer.
yourself,
Alors,
well,
mon
the
ami,
canoe will not might
toujours à la
tip
survie
over.
en
So
forêt, j'en parle beaucoup, la survie en
we
forêt.
have to organize ourselves. And I talk about
Religieux,
forest survival in the forest. He had the opportunity to
et
live in the forest.
miigwech,
And
l'orientation,
miigwech,
je peux vous emmener
I can
n'importe où dans
talk.
la forêt,
I
c'est
can
chaud.
take you in anywhere in the forest. It's in my forest. I'm very good for guiding you around. But in the city, I don't even know when it's time to cross the street. I'm scared of the vehicles. It's just it's a mentality. Like the animals, I'm a bit wild. I'd rather say it's like it's like a it's just, when I try to take a risk across the street, I feel like this wild animal. And what's important is to recognize a life's movement when I get up, and I get up with a sunrise, sometimes before sunrise. When it's dark outside, I usually go to sleep at 7 o'clock in the evening. So I received all these teachings. So I try to teach people this. I take advantage of this. I take this time to live in the present moment. It's no use thinking I have to go somewhere in 2 days. Well, tomorrow I'll think about tomorrow, but now you have to think of what's of the here and now. It's a time to share things with all the wonderful people listening to us. For me, that's a gift, and I move ahead one more step, just like a turtle, every day. I take my time, whether I'm hurt or not hurt, or I'll take my time and I'll heal myself like an animal before moving forward with another animal. So that's part of our philosophy. There's a lot of things that disturb us, technology and all of this. Yes, miigwech. I don't know very much about it. Miigwech for that, anyways. And technology is good, and I'm proud of people who work in this. But the word work is dangerous too. The word work is dangerous. I don't use this word. I've been using it for a long time. For me, work is this the spirit suffering. Suffer. You get up in the morning, I have to go work. No, you have to say, I have to go see my brothers and sisters. That way you can you have something to look forward to, and you pass on the best medicine, the strongest medicine in the world. You know what that is? Look at me. It's the smile. The smile. That's medicine. So we don't have to talk. Already here, you transfer your energy. You get up in the morning. You come. You get up with a big smile. When we don't say how are you. We just say smile. You just see the smile, and that says it all. It's good human medicine, Anishinaabe medicine. And I often tell my daughter, always is the an Anishinaabe. and you'll find your grandmother's path. I often say this to my daughter. And thank you once again. I won't take more time, but thank you, everybody, for this wonderful initiative you've taken. Thank you, Justin, Janet, Maria, Albert, and my wife as well. She's there.
Miigwech. Yes, we ask you to do a lot, Dominique, but we know Marie Jose helps us so much in making sure that you are able to be with us. So miigwech to Marie Jose for all your help. We know that you are there, and we really thank you for helping us as well. Janet, was there anything else that you wanted to just, we're getting close to the end of our time, and I just wanted to check in with you on if there was anything else to mention before we close and we say our thank yous to everybody.
Just wanted to express my extreme gratitude. And I don't know exactly how everybody else out there feels, but I'm imagining that people might have come into the evening with quite a bit of fatigue at the least, but I feel like very much nourished. I feel extremely rich because I got to spend the evening listening to stories, and to me, these stories are more valuable than anything else, I guess, except maybe spending time with family and loved ones. But here we do it virtually. I wish that I could be there in person to express my gratitude. And some of you know I like to share gifts. So yeah, I'll take the tobacco out and put it under my pear tree, where sometimes when I'm lucky, a big red hawk sits. And yeah, there will be some tokens of appreciation arriving in the mail too. So we figure out how to do this all at a distance. But I'm just so grateful. I don't know if all the elders know, but we've had over 50 people listening, just really expressing their gratitude and appreciation and sacred thank yous for the incredible generosity and the very rich teachings that you shared with us today. There's so much there. We are very lucky. And I don't even know how many people are on Facebook Live, and it'll be up there as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will turn it over to Jocelyn to wrap it up, and then she'll ask Elder Dominique to close.
Thank you, Janet. And as we mentioned, this was the fourth event that Well Living House and the National Association of Friendship Centers has done together. And just to express our appreciation for this partnership, kind of taking the lessons that the elders have shared. We've done that, in the times of hardship. We have come together in many ways, and I think this partnership might not have happened had it not been for COVID. And it has us thinking of other things that we can do together now. And we really, our hearts go out to all of those families who have lost somebody because of COVID. And during the pandemic itself, we've had a lot of hardships. People have been struggling, and certainly our thoughts are with them. And we take those lessons to heart, and we do our best to provide for our communities. This was one small way that we could at least do some outreach to share a little bit of what we know with folks in the best way that we know how, with the tools that are available to us. So just deep appreciation for the work that we've done together, and all of our team members that have worked on the back end that we don't see on screen. People have gotten used to, I think, to seeing myself and you, Dr. Smiley, but we have tremendous teams backing us up, and we really appreciate the efforts of those team members. Same thing to our panelists. You have given such powerful reminders, to me at least, and I think to folks. It's been a light in what has been a very difficult time, and I really take those reminders to heart about everything that we really need. We have already, and we just have to maybe think through and be a bit creative about what we do, and looking into those things. And Maria, as you were talking about, taking out those pictures, I have this box of spoons that my grandmother had collected from around the world, and they've just been sitting in this corner. And just when you're telling that story, it reminded me, I can reconnect with her even though she's long past now, through these spoons that she collected, and maybe could imagine some of those adventures that she had gone on, and where she found these spoons and chose to bring them home. So that was definitely something very solid that I take back, that I definitely want to do over these winter months when I don't have anything else that I can really think to do, and have watched all the TV shows and, and those kinds of things. So yes, just a deep appreciation for the time that we have spent together. Thank you so much for your sharing, Elder Dumont, the stories that you shared about how you've passed on, and that reminder of being sensible, right? It's, sometimes we don't have to make things up or make things too complicated. We just have to use the sense that we've been given, and those teachings. So thank you for your stories and everything that you've contributed. And again, miigwech to Elder Dominique, and I'll ask you if you can close us out in a good way. Miigwech, everyone.
Je vais vous demander de prendre quelque chose dans vos mains
I will ask you to take something in your hand,
qui vous fait rappeler dans votre histoire,
something that reminds you of your story, of your family,
quoi que ce soit.
whatever you wish to hold.
Pour une petite chanson très courte pour
A
nous.
short song for our ancestors.
Vraiment chanceux encore d'en parler
We
des savoirs des anciens qui nous ont laissés.
are very lucky to have these teachings and this knowledge of these elders who left us. And I want to honor all the people who left us on this earth. And each time I look at the stars in the sky, they represent our ancestors. And there's always a small light that shines, that sends us messages, and to tell us that we're never alone at night.
The book of Sentiment got the Benjigat. Minishinan Giavich. Mayak is it a cookyan. Ijige kikinomak. A washishuk. The Benutismuk. Miguachkina. The Quilk. Ukumak. The Mushomananuk. Miguach Friendship Centers. All Friendship Centers. Thank you. Nashima. Miguach.
Miigwech. Nice to see you, Maria. Bye.
Hi, hi. Thank you, everyone. It's been a great evening. Thanks. And hello to everybody that said hello in the chat. What a special evening.